Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 352 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. Going to be live hacking on some Firefox stuff, maybe reviewing some patches, maybe helping out some colleagues, doing some work. And I'm so glad to have you with me on the second episode of 2024. Let's get started. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Yeah, it's January 17th, 2024, episode 352. So good to have you here. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I don't know how this stream is going to go. I kind of have some things I'm hoping to do today, but might not even get through half of them. We'll see. Might not even get through the first one. We might get stuck on it. Could happen. Or maybe we'll get through all of these in the first 20 minutes and I'll have to figure out what to do next. That could happen too. We're going to roll with the punches as they come. I like to say software development in the raw, also roll with the punches. There you go. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is something you have access to. Depending on where you are watching this, it's going to be at a couple of different locations. So if you're watching this on Twitch, for example, it's down in the channel details. If you're watching this on diode.zone or YouTube, it'll be down in the video description. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's over there in the details section. And yeah, let's dive right into it. I want to start by helping out a colleague. So a colleague reached out, my colleague Nicholas reached out saying, I was wondering if you had some time to help me out with a screenshots bug. So if you're not familiar with the screenshots feature, hang on, let me close some of these other, let me clear the palette, so to speak, and we can start from scratch. If you're not familiar with the screenshots feature, it's a feature built into Firefox that allows you to snip a chunk of the page and either copy it to the clipboard or download it as a screenshot image or something. It's very handy. You can save the full page or just what's visible, or you can pick and choose, and there's this handy element picker. It's quite nice. And Nicholas and another colleague, Sam, have been working on basically rewriting it, because the original version, the version that if you're on release, if you've used the feature before, the version that you've been using actually started as an extension that got dropped into Firefox as a sort of a built-in shipped extension. So if we go to Searchfox, you can actually see where that happens. It's right here. There's a browser extension, screenshots, and the extension is built in, and it was first, I think, shipped in, I don't remember. To Mozilla Central. That happened back in 2017. Wild. Well, there are good things and bad things maybe of shipping extensions. One of the great things is that you can update these extensions outside of the release cycle if need be. That's one of the advantages of shipped extensions, is we have mechanisms that allow us to send an update to the entire code base for the extension. The extension unloads and reloads itself. And that's actually really handy for some of the other extensions like WebCompat. The WebCompat extension, its job is to patch websites and make sure and try to make them work with Firefox in the event that, some part of them doesn't work properly and they're a major website and we don't want to wait for a full-blown Firefox release to go out. WebCompat's super helpful for that. The other one is Picture-in-Picture. Now, Picture-in-Picture, the feature, is actually something that's built into the code base, but we have these video wrappers for various services and rules for, any overrides for particular sites. These tell us things use this wrapper for ABC News for any videos at this URL, at this sort of template for a URL. And that allows us to make sure that pip is working properly. It can do captions, that sort of thing. And we want to be able to react to those quickly in the event that one of those sites changes. For example, suppose YouTube ships a new version in an hour and all of Picture-in-Picture for YouTube stops working. Well, we could, in theory, update the Picture-in-Picture extension and ship an update to it without having to do a dot release. It's very isolated to just the extension, and that's something that we can do. Now, the screenshots extension, I think it wasn't the advantages aren't as apparent, and in fact there are some disadvantages, primarily because the screenshots extension was written as an experiment during, I think, the test pilot days, and then it was landed more or less as is in the tree. And unfortunately has kind of languished. And there are a number of deficiencies with the extension version of screenshots. For example, I don't think it's as accessible. There are some accessibility deficiencies, as well as I think some performance deficiencies. Not that it's not a great feature, but there are things that can be improved. And so Nicholas and Sam have been working on rewriting this to be a built-in feature. And I actually have the built-in version of it on. So the way you turn on the built-in version of screenshots is by going to browser.screenshots. Oh, screenshots. Yeah, screenshots.browser.component.enabled and setting that to true. So I'm going to put that. You can test out the new screenshots backend by setting that pref to true. And that's what Nick's question is about. So Nick asks, hey, Mike, I was wondering if you had some time to help out with the screenshots bug I'm working on. Here's the bug. Screenshots gets broken when dragging the tab to a new window. I left a comment in the patch about my approach to this problem. Basically, what I'm wondering is my approach correct? And if so, how do I mitigate what seems to be a race condition, or is there a better way to do this all together? So this is a bug that our QA team found. Let's zoom in and read the text. So the bug description is, you have to enable the new backend, navigate to any website, enable screenshots. There's a keyboard shortcut. You can do it with the toolbar as well, presumably. And then drag the tab to create a new window. And it's expected that the second window is created and screenshots to remain enabled. The actual result is the screenshots overlay follows the tab to the second window while the buttons remain in the first window. Please see the screen recording for more details. So let's look at the screen recording. Okay, so this person dragged, oh, I see. So yeah, the buttons to do the save, visible, whatnot, stayed behind. Yeah, that looks all broken. That's a good call out from QA. And so Nick has a patch here. And how does the patch work? Well, it looks like what he's doing is he's adding a method to swap browsers and close other, or a new condition to here to say whether or not screenshots is open. I didn't realize that we set an attribute for screenshots. Or is that something that... Oh, that's something he started to add. So what does he write here? This bug has a video. The bug has a video demonstrating the issue that occurs with this bug. My idea is to dispatch tab swap screenshots event. This seems to work for the most part, but during a browser swap, the document's visibility state changes to hidden, and that causes screenshots to close when we don't want it to. To fix the visibility state change issue, I listen to tab switched events, during which I try to find the screenshots tab that is not selected and is in the initial state, then close screenshots for that browser. This works sometimes. I think I'm running into a race condition where dragging the tab to a different window will trigger the tab switched event and close screenshots, even though said tab should be selected and not cause screenshots to close. Tab sometimes selected, sometimes not. The issue is intermittent, happens when the screenshot state is initial and is dragged to a new existing window. Interesting. Oh, and Nick is in the chat. Hey, Nick. Nick is in the chat. Nice to see you. Okay, so that's interesting. So there is let's look at the patch and how it works. So there is a visibility change event handler that is being removed. So part of the teardown system, I guess, is being removed, which is interesting. There's a before unload also being set up. I guess that's the idea, is so that means that if like originally if the tab went into the background, it looks like we would have put it away. Let's test that out. So if I like did screenshot and I switch and I come back, no, it's there. Like maybe it's talking about, yeah, that part. Like if I'm here and I switch and I come back, that might be what powers that. We can actually test that later. Okay, let's keep thinking. Down here in tab browser, we're doing the check to see whether or not the tab has the attribute screenshots. And if so, we're gonna move that attribute. This is part of the routine that runs when we tear tabs out, which is actually a swap. Okay. We did this for picture in picture. I'm trying to remember why we did it here. Because there's another event that that fires. I'm pretty sure there's a custom event. Tab select, tab switch done, tab browser inserted, tab browser, tab open, tab close, tab multi-select, tab select, tab switch done. No? I thought for sure there was like a frame loader swap event. Check expectations, tab event tracker, description, muted, unmuted. I could have sworn there's like a browser custom element.js swap frame loaders. Swap doc shells. This looks like page hide events fire. That, I think, is expected. We do that on purpose during the swap. Yeah, I have a feeling the race that Nick is talking about is a race between getting those page hide event listeners to fire and then responding to those and sending messages up to the parent. And then there's the tab switch case. I thought for sure there was like a tab swap. Doc shell swap. Ah, swap doc shells. Dispatch. Here. This is what we really should be doing, is ideally to keep things decoupled. Because like I'm not super happy with the fact that we've got this like picture-in-picture specific code in here. Like we are letting the picture-in-picture code deal with things in its event handler, but tab browser needs to know to dispatch that, it needs to know about picture-in-picture. And yes, it already the tabs know about this, but like, I wonder if we can take advantage of this other event that's already being fired, swap dock shells. So I'm going to start there. I realize that there's already a tab swap picture-in-picture event here, which is already doing this sort of thing. But I wonder if instead of adding another attribute event, we could have the screenshots component parent. Like, is there, who's listening to tab swap screenshots utils? Have the screenshots utils module listen for, excuse me, the swap dock shells event. Instead, that's this one. Here, let's include the entire block of text. That happens a little later on, but should still give you what you need. The detail, instead of it being a tab, is the other browser, the browser element. But you can, the swap dock shells event is past the other browser element as its detail, is fired on both browsers being swapped, and each is past the other browser element as its detail. Yeah, okay. Nick says, the visibility state change will only remove the overlay if the overlay state is crosshairs or the initial state. Otherwise, we keep the screenshots UI open. Okay. But presumably, this removes that overlay handling behavior. So unless I'm greatly mistaken, like this is an intentional change where we will no longer remove the overlay in crosshairs state. Is that true? Oh, you're going to use tab switched instead. Tab switched instead. Got it. Handle tab switched. Yeah, that makes more sense. Instead of I think this makes more sense. Yes, instead of waiting for visibility change to come up from the content, we can notice the tab switch in the parent. And what happens is handle tab switched. Now, I believe tab switched we don't get the old tab that we're switching from. That's a pain. But we'll go and see whether or not we're going to get the non-deterministic weak map keys, browser to screenshot state. We'll get the, for each, we'll get the browser. Well, I think we can skip some of this. We can probably use the event fired here to identify the window that the tab switch occurred in, and just continue for any browser that happens to belong to a different window. I realize that there probably aren't a huge number of windows within the screenshot state, but we can save some work there. So we get tab for browser. Instead of checking the selected attribute, I think I'd recommend using gbrowser.selected tab equals tab rather than looking at the selected attribute. That's more idiomatic. That's what we tend to do more often. Okay. Yeah, and that way I don't think we need the screenshots attribute anymore. If we listen for if we have the screenshots utils listen for tab swap screenshots, because we already have the weak map, that can be our like lookup, I think. Because it's mapped from browser. Yeah, browser to screenshot state. So let's think about this race a little bit. During a browser swap, the document's visibility state changes to hidden, and that causes screenshots to close. To fix the visibility state issue, I listen to the tab switched events, during which I try to find the screenshot tab that is not selected and is in the initial state, and close screenshots for that browser. This works sometimes. I think we're running into a race condition where dragging the tab to a different window will trigger the tab switched event and close screenshots, even though said tab should be selected and not cause screenshots to close. Dragging the tab to a different window will trigger the tab switched event. So, I mean, yeah, it will. When you drag a tab to a different window, the original window will fire tab switched. Because you're going to be closing after the swap, it'll close. The old one will close. The other thing to remember is the browser elements. Oh, geez, hang on. Now that I think about it, the browser elements don't swap. So you've got these keys. Are we handling the screenshots utils.sys.mjs browser weak map, browser to screenshots state set delete exit. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind, the other thing we need to do, oh yeah, it looks like he was already, okay, yeah, he does. Okay. If the original tab is in the initial state, we're going to close the panel, create a panel for the new one, and then open the panel. We hook up a new event listener to it. We get our access to the new G browser. We listen for tab switched on it. We remove tabs. Hold on. Tab switched. When do we normally add that event listener? UI phases closed. If we're currently in closed phase, then do these things. We're going to add the event listener tab switched. So one thing to remember about this too, if we ever have two tabs where we enter the screenshot state in a window, well, I guess it's supposed to be 1-to-1, so in theory we should never be able to have two at the same time, unless what are the different UI phases? Overlay selection. So it might still actually be open due to overlay selection. Okay, so I do have a thing to say here. So based on my understanding, it is possible for multiple tabs to have some states here, some screenshot state in the same window, same browser window, if, for example, they're in the crosshair mode. This means that we kind of only want to have this tab switched event handler get added the first time one tab enters the screenshots state, and only remove that event listener after the last tab exits the screenshot state. On line, what was it? Where do we remove it? On line 194, we are removing the tab switched event listener when in theory one or more tabs might still have the screenshots UI open in that window. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Now, where is this race? Let's think about this race some more. Dragging the tab to a different window will trigger the tab switched event and close screenshots. I'm going to presume he means in the newly opened window. Nick, I know you're in the chat, but I presume that that's what you mean, right? Like when you drag to the new window, the newly opened window will tab switch, will sometimes throw the tab switched event and then close screenshots in the new window. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is you can also drag to an existing window, and that will also cause a tab switch to occur. I mean, so the easiest thing to do is probably to close, no matter what. I mean, I can tell that we're fighting to get the screenshots UI to stay open and persist after a tab tear out and a tab drag. And there's a bit of work to do to probably debug that and make that work. Is that something we really want to do? It's certainly simpler, I think, to just close the screenshots UI if a drag event ever occurs. Like we drag the tab out. I think that's simpler. And is that something we would consider as a simplification? Or is it a requirement that it must survive the tear out? So that's a question. So let's go to this tab switch event handler again, because I think that's where the super interesting part is happening. Now it's possible that the swap event even the swap dock shells event, is that what I called it? The swap dock shells event? It may actually, I don't know if it'll always fire before the switch, the tab switch. I think it might, but it might not. They're focused on the tab switch. Try to keep screenshots open. Okay, so it is an explicit requirement. They want to keep it open. So there's a thing you could try. This may or may not satisfy, but we know that tab switching sometimes happens very quickly. You know, when opening a new window, we might do a tab switch fairly quickly, and then we might switch back. There is an event called tab switch done, which only fires once the whole operation has completed. And I kind of wonder if that might be more interesting to pay attention to whenever the tab switching is all completed. So that'll be my next question for you, Nick. Hey, Nicholas. Just a few small points below. One question. Does the race tend to go away if instead of waiting for the tab switched event, you wait for tab switch done? The other thing that comes to mind is when we do swap frame loaders, wasn't there a way that we would like indicate that we were doing a swap that you could use? So there's like a page hide. Where do we fire those? Swap with other remote loader. Send. We would send a message and let them know, hey, you've swapped. So on the receiving side, be like, hey, turns out I swapped frame loaders. Two, 2215. There we go. So we receive it. What do we do? Fire page show event for frame loader swap. Page show and page hide. And then we go show, hide, then show again. I remember this being very deliberate. Only system group, fire if showing. On page show. Oh boy, this is a long file. 11782. On page show. Persisted. Right, page show. There's a persisted. It indicates if the document is loading from a cache. Forward cache, so this will not prevent the page from being included in the BF cache. The page isn't being discarded, so it can be reused later. All right. I think part of the issue here is that we're trying to organize across a bunch of messages that may or may not play in the same order each time. Like, I think you've helped eliminate one of those by removing the visibility change handler and using the tab switch handler instead. I do think, however, that is susceptible to the tab switches that occur quickly during tab drag in and out. This is probably interleaving with the events and messages that fire from the swap itself, which may or may not sometimes be blocked or run out of order because they, I think, sometimes wait for messages from the content. That's a bunch of supposition on my part. What I'd recommend is to take a look at the tab switch done event to see if that occurs late enough to eliminate this race. The other thing to consider is doing the simple thing, which is always closing the screenshots UI in the event of a tab drag out, tab tear out. Submit. All right, there you go, Nick. Hopefully that was helpful. Give that a read. Let me know what you thought. All right, what are we doing next? I want to review a patch. I'm going to review this patch over here. This is allow only valid IP/hostname for proxy configs. So this is a patch from a volunteer contributor. This is an old bug. This is a 6-digit bug, but it's in the 300,000s. This was filed 18 years ago. And basically there's like proxy configuration. If you go to about preferences, you're welcome, Nick. If you go to settings, I think there's in here, you can like manual proxy, no proxy for what are we doing here? Click on connection settings, enter proxy address. So manual proxy. So you can add some things and it's saying that try to access an internet web. Click on enter your proxy IP address. So if you do this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 that's not valid. That shouldn't be valid. But and then it focuses the port. So if I do 1 2 3, it's like it allows it, and it really shouldn't allow it. That is not a valid host name. Hey, it's my good friend Elad Difficult. Snow day. Here, check it out. Where's sound effects? Snow day.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okie dokie. It's me, Mario.
Amazing. Good to have you here, Elad. Good to have you in the chat. Okay. So this shouldn't be hard to fix. A simple regex match for valid IP address should do the job. So we had gone back and forth a little bit with JD Das here, where instead of using a regular expression, which, you know, look at that. Yeah, I love the soundboard too.
I don't think so.
I just spill your beans.
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So check if the the original patch was using a regular expression to try and like match and determine whether or not a thing is a valid hostname or an IP address. And I spoke to someone on the networking team, and there's actually a utility that does this already. And it's in our networking code, but it's just not exposed to our privileged JavaScript. And so what we did is we guided the volunteer contributor and said like, hey, we can expose this stuff. Popping in to say hi, going to do a bit of work, and then we'll chat later. Yes. Yes. Hello, and let's chat soon. Welcome back. So what we've got here is a patch that checks to see, like it exposes a method on IO service called isValidHostname. This all looks great. There is an alignment issue here where this is a very small nit alignment, nitpick alignment. This should go back one space. It's just a little bit out of alignment. Not a huge deal, but and normally our style bot would pick it up, but this is an IDL file, and I don't think our style bots know about those. He exposes it and passes it through to the utility, the native utility called net_isValidHostname, and then he updated his code here. Is invalid or the port is set to 0, then cancel submission. So here's what we do. For the pref name, if the proxy pref value is not empty and the port is not 0, and pref name equals HTTP or pref name is socks, or not share proxies pref value. That's the old way of doing it. Then we like focus the port, because the port is 0. We'll focus the port and we'll prevent the submission. There's another one here which is like, okay, if the value is not empty and it's not a valid host name, then we'll do these things. Now, I think we can simplify this a little bit, because note there are a couple things to note. These conditions, these two if statements, this condition is the same, and these conditions are the same. So we can actually combine these into a single if. I think we can. So I'm going to write this, and I can do this with a suggestion as well. So I'm going to select the block of code. I'm going to do a suggestion here, and what I'll say is, I think this can be simplified into a shared containing if block, since there are some similar conditions being matched here. So if proxy pref value is not blank and pref name equals HTTP or pref name equals socks or that, then we enter this block, and then we go if proxy port value equals 0, then that. I don't even know if we need to return immediately. Do we need to return immediately? Yes, I think we do. Else if. Oh, I guess we don't need an else. There's a return at the end of that. So if I actually think we could put the first one, the first check of seeing whether or not it's valid up here. If not valid, then not the port. Then we can get rid of that. So what we have here is like, okay, if there's a value that's been set and we're in one of these configurations, check to see if it's not a valid host name. If so, do this. Or if it's not a valid port, do this. Yeah, that's probably good enough. Danny Colin's like, we're having fun in Neko World. Heck yeah, Neko Land. The proxy server, when specified, is invalid or the port is set to 0, then cancel submission. Yeah. That works for me. I think we're going to need to add a reviewer. Oh, we've already got Neko reviewers blocking this, so that's good. Don't need to change that. The other thing I want to suggest is a test, if possible. Is there already a proxy test? Preferences, tests. Connection. Oh, some of these are pretty ancient. Let's take a look at this one. This is better. Open the connection. Okay. So I'm going to ask that this contributor also write a test. And I'll guide them on how to do that. I say, this is great. Good work. Have a small refactoring suggestion for the connection.js change. Other than that, I think the only thing we need here is an automated test. Here's how I recommend writing that. 1. Use mock add test and then browser components preferences test browser, what will we call it? Connection valid host name. Make sure to add that to tracking, that new file to tracking via either git add or hgadd, depending on which one you're using. I don't know which one they're using. Depending on which one you are using. You should be able to run the stubbed out test by running mock test such and such. Then edit that test to do the following. Then edit that test to do the following. 1. Open about preferences. 2. Open the connection proxy settings dialog. Was it connection.xhtml. fill in the dialogue with an invalid host name. Click submit and ensure that the there's an event being handled, right? Like this is the before accept gconnections dialog. Gconnections dialog before accept. Before accept. I see. So we're gonna add an event listener. Before clicking submit, add a before accept event listener. Not submit. What's it called? Before hitting OK, clicking OK in the test, add a before accept event listener. Click OK, and then make sure that the before accept event was seen and marked as canceled. I think that's what we were doing here. Prevent and has prevent default. Default prevented, I think is what it is. Default prevented. Set to true on it. Let's see. Let's find some examples for this contributor to work with. So here's an example of a test. Here's an example of a test that opens up preferences and the connections dialog. Do we have an example of a test that that does before accept testing? Test Chrome. Before accept. Fire event before accept. So we're probably going to want to use something called like browser test utils, wait for event, preferences, test. Okay. So how will I write this? Waiting for the before accept event will look something like this. Let before accept called equals wait for event, and then dialog. Should look something like this. Where is before accept fired on? This fire event, new custom event target is the dialog itself, dialog element. Before accept. And then what does wait for event? Oh, sorry, I've got it over here. Wait for event. Does it resolve? What does it resolve with? Resolve, return check function, event, return. The event object. Okay, so we get the event back. So then, like, how do I accept on dialogue accept? That happens on dialogue accept. Where's a test? Good test. Dialogue, accept dialogue. Yeah. Let event equals await before accept called. Assert, okay, event dot default prevented. The host name was not valid, and therefore the dialogue was not accepted. Or I should just say the dialogue was not accepted. Up above here, we put in an invalid host name into the form field. Before accept called equals browser test util. We'll do it again. Put a valid host name into the form field. Dialog, accept dialog. Let event equals await before accept called. Assert okay, not was accepted, and then I think the dialog will close. And what'll do we have to like wait for that? Callback called. Open and load subdialog. Close and callback. If you use this helper function, which to open the dialog, then in the closing callback, you can verify that the pref was properly set. Then we should ensure that those preferences get cleared before the test finishes. I haven't done any testing of the code above to see if it'll work. So give it a shot and let me know if it doesn't result in a working test, and I can help guide you on it. So request changes. There we go, reviewed. So that's done. That's done. SmurfD asks, does mock add test also add the JS to the ini file? Yes. No, it does. It's very handy. It will find the right place and insert it in the .toml file, because we've replaced the .inis. For the most part, we've been replacing the .ini files with .toml instead. And yeah, it will go ahead and insert it in the right spot in there, which is great. All right, what are we doing next? Let's convert places feed to an ESM. So much fun. This is kind of what we were doing last week. Oh, good. They opened up. Did they open up try again? Not yet. I've been waiting for this try build to finish. Oh, boy. I'm going to follow that. That's interesting. I need this try build to finish up. I want to convert something to an ESM, and in order to do that, I have to convert a test, just like what we were doing last week. And I'm going to base this off of the work I did and completed. Last week, during that same day, I completed the highlights feed conversion. So we're going to be doing kind of the same thing for the end of this episode. I realize it's not like the funnest thing, but that's the last one. That's the last thing that uses inject. This thing. It was telemetry feed. That one's done. Highlights feed. We did that last week. Places feed's the last one. And we don't, I think, have to do this again. So first, I've checked out the tree at the point where the highlights feed stuff is done. And then we're going to start by adapting the test. So we can actually take a look at the test right now. It's placesfeed.test.js. The good news is I've saved the shortest one for the end. I knew it'd be exhausting, and so I did the hardest one first. It's not always the smartest idea to do the hardest thing first. Sometimes it's better to do the easier one first, but I figured it was going to be such a slog that I'd just get through the first one, and then each one would get easier. Because that way I wouldn't feel like my energy was getting sapped each time. So this is the test that we're going to be converting, the test file, and it's testing a bunch of stuff, and who knows, maybe this one will be a real pain in the butt. We're going to find out. So we have the highlights feed to an ESM patch checked out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the test. Here, let me pump up the font. You can see what I'm doing. We're going to move the test. I think it's places feed. No, what test unit lib places feed. We're going to move that to browser components, new tab, test XPC shell. We're going to call it test places feed dot JS. And then we have to remove, or there's no registry that we have to remove that from. We do need to add test places feed to the XPC shell registry. So code, browser, components, new tab, test, XPC shell dot toml. Places feed, that'll be right here. All right, now if we go to test places feed .js, this is mostly incompatible with a mostly incompatible with an XPC shell test. So we're basically going to be starting this from scratch, just like last time. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to do. Where's highlights feed? Test highlights feed. It's right here. Yeah. Why is it crossed out? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, VS Code? Okay. We are going to start with the same preamble, I think. We are going to also import action creators. See? We won't need that anymore. We don't need the global overrider. We're just going to import places feed. So places feed.jsm. That is this URL. Chrome utils import places feed. Bring that in. Here are some structures that I guess are for testing. We can keep those around. And then we start getting into the descriptions and stuff. Now this is where I comment out a big old block, because all this stuff needs to be converted. Instead, I'm going to do add task async function test places feed construction. I'll just say test construction, because I think that's how we started the highlights feed one as well, which was just like, let's create a sandbox. Oh, we're gonna need sign-in. We're gonna say that places feed construction should work. Don't need this part for now. I presume that's what they start with as well. Places feed should have a places observer that dispatches on the store. What is a places observer? Places feed dot places observer. Okay. So it doesn't actually test the construction. All right. Well, I'll do that. Let feed equals new places feed. Assert okay feed. Places feed could be constructed. Very simple, bare bones. So now we'll run mock build faster. And we'll run the test. Mock test. Why is this? Okay. Well, mock test. Browser components. New tab. Test. XBC shell test places feed. All right. Looks good. Let us now let's look at this first one. So this first thing, yeah, I should just go ahead and remove it from down here. Should have a places observer that dispatches to the store. So add task async function test places observer. So info places feed should have a places observer that dispatches to the store. And let's copy these things. Again, I don't like to use consts for objects because technically those are not constants. We're going to stub out the dispatch method on the store. Okay, so we need sign on now. Let's see. Sign in. Sign in. Let's sandbox. Let's sign in to create sandbox. And that means sandbox.restore at the end. And then we're going to do sandbox.stub feed store dispatch. And then we're going to dispatch the action, and we're going to say assert okay dispatch called once. Feed places feed dot store dispatch called, and then assert equal there. Let's see if that passes. Nope. Trying to stub property dispatch of undefined. Oh, yes. I think we need to do this over here as well. That we need to like construct a store. So we're gonna sort of draft. Oh, oopsie daisy. Revert. We're gonna need to like draft off of similar work we did for highlights feed. We're gonna create a helper function called get places feed for test. And now the store, how do they like to do that? Places feed. Store. I guess they don't need most of this stuff, so I'll just do that. And I don't need to stub it. Oh, I need to say get places feed for test sandbox. There you go. Now the rest of the setup that occurred is very interesting. Like what did they do? On the places utils, they did a bunch of like spying on services and whatnot, which we can't really do, but that's okay. We got our first one. This is done. Hooray. What's next? Describe, add to blocked top site sponsors. We're gonna take this entire describe. Let's take a couple of describes. Let's take these two describes. Rather long. Oh boy. Oh boy, that's a big describe. Okay, that's like half of it. Let's see if we can get this half done before the end of the episode. That gives me 15 minutes. That's ambitious. I doubt it. I doubt it. Let's see though. Add task, async function, test, add to blocked, top site sponsors, and then what are we testing? Add to block list. So we're gonna say places feed dot add to block blah 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 should add the block sponsors to the block list. Okay. Let sandbox equals sign on dot create sandbox. Sandbox dot restore. All right. And then we're going to create a feed for testing. And then add feed to blocks. Okay. Assert spy. What's spy? Spy equals set string pref. Well, guess what? I'm going to have to actually read set string pref. I'm going to have to actually read the pref value. So for these, I'm going to have to... That's a pain. Services.prefs set string pref. And we're going to put that in. And then we're going to assert that set the pref is now different. That the pref should be sponsors. Okay. So let blocked sponsors equals JSON string of JSON parse services prefs get string pref top sites blocked sponsored pref assert deep equal blocked sponsors. Does that work? Yes. Okay, and then we're going to services clear prefs clear user pref top sites blocked sponsors pref. So that one's done. It should not add duplicate sponsors to the block list. Okay, no dupes. Ironically, I will duplicate this test, but I'll say no dupes. Should not add duplicate sponsors. And the way we'll do that is it's got foo, bar, and test, and we've already have foo and bar in there. Okay. And then it should be this. Easy. Next. Oh, and that was the first describe. Great. That's that one. Next one's on action. This is the big one. Okay. Add task async function. Test on action. Init. Should add bookmark history places and blocked observers on init. I got a bad feeling we're gonna have to do a bunch of spying and stuff. Ugh. Yeah, I can't do this. Add observer called with feed blocked event. I can't. All right. So I have to. There are certain things I can mock out, and there's certain things I can't. That's one of the advantage of these old tests is that they were running in the Node environment. And they just basically like reinvented all of the Gecko privileged environment so they could mock out everything because it was all just JS. Here in XPC Shell, all these services actually exist. And that's good because you're testing against the real stuff and they'll behave the same way. And so you don't accidentally like have a mock that doesn't behave the way that the original does. Because that's fun. But instead, we have to like sometimes do a little bit of mucking about with overrides or mucking about trying to read values out of these XPCOM components afterwards because we can't use sign-in to monitor them. So we call init, and then it's saying, hey, placesutils.observers.addListener should have been called with these. Placesutils.observers. Maybe that is something that we can mock out. Hello? Places observers. What's places observers? What's places observers? Precious? WebIDL. Can't mock this out. Okay. And I can't query for whether or not listeners exist. What I can do, however, is fire these notifications and see whether or not these places events, like the feed gets notified about them. Handle places event. Okay, so what I'll do, what am I gonna do? For let notification of notifications. So let notifications equal these. We will fire them. Places utils dot notify listeners. Bookmark added. Can I just do that? Can I just... What happens if I just do this? Is it going to explode? Places utils dot observers. I guess I have to bring in places utils now. Jimbo's like, yeah, that's right. This could be a disaster. We'll see. Let's find out. Let's just run it and see what happens. Yeah. Notify listeners. What's the first argument supposed to be? Sequence events. Oh, do I do it like this? Element of argument 1 is now an object. Don't notify listeners. Places. What? Notifications dot push, and then you put an object. So something that implements places event. Places event. What is that? These are the types. Places visit is a places event. Has a type. That's all we know. So let's see. Let event equals type notification. Notify listeners event. Does that work? Element does not implement interface places event. Do I have to say like new places event? That doesn't make sense. How are some of these used? Like bookmark visit, places bookmark addition, init, places bookmark. How do I use these interfaces? Chrome only, exposed on window, window.places bookmark. I don't know if, yeah, places event, is that, that's just a thing. So I'm gonna do new places event. Can I do that? Ah, illegal constructor. Chrome only, places event. What do you want in a constructor? Or is there how is this? We saw an example of this being used elsewhere. Places utils servers notify. Bookmark. Places observers notify listeners. Places observers notify listeners. There's one called places ranking, and you can just create one of those. Places ranking. Has a constructor. Oh, I see. Yeah, this is going to be tricky to mock out. So what one do we want? We want bookmark added. Places bookmark addition. That one has a constructor. Okay, what about bookmark removed? That has a constructor. Okay, that's good. History cleared. Has a constructor. page removed is places visit removed. Has a constructor. Okay. So I feel good about this now. So bookmark added, which one was it? It was bookmark, places, bookmark, addition. And there's this like big structure I have to supply. That's a pain in the butt. But let's see. New. Is there a test one? Yeah, here's a test one. Notifications. New places bookmark addition. Date added. False. URL. GUID. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Let's see if I can just notify those notification. Okay, that works. And now can I verify that handle places event was called? So places feed. So what I can do is I can stub this out. Sandbox stub feed dot handle places event. How do I want to do this? Notify, then assert okay feed.handle places event called once, places feed handle place event called and then assert okay feed.handle places event.called with notification. And then I'm going to say feed.handle places event.reset history. And does that work? No. Cannot stub a non-existent own property. Handle places event. Oh, that's on places observer. So it's actually on the places observer, not on, right. Feed.places observer. False is true on 160, so handle places event was not called. Okay, so let's do this. Let's set a debugger here. We did not get nearly as far as I expected. Let's see if we can solve this mystery, and then I'm going to end the stream. Okay, so we're going to run our test. Connect. Okay. So where's places feed? And handle places event. Well, we've got, let's make sure we're not entering here, but our stub, I'm hoping we enter our stub. So notify listeners. Feed.places observer. Handle places event. Called true. Called once. True. Okay. Called with. Notification. True. Oh, okay. So that worked when I just sort of stepped through it. If I don't step through it, what happens? Like, does it still fail? Was that just like a... Yeah. If I don't step through it... I wonder if I have to let the event loop breathe. Notify listeners might execute soon. Await new promise. Resolve. Execute soon. Resolve. Might have to wait for the event loop to breathe before the dispatch goes through. Observers. Notify listeners. When does that occur? Places observers. Notify listeners. Notify next. Call listeners. So it should be synchronous. It should happen right away. I don't see any like batching or thread. Get listeners. Dispatch. Await. Tick. Event loop. No. Idle. No. So I don't know why it wouldn't be right away. Now let's. What happens if I await some number of seconds? Now I'm going to need to bring in set timeout, unfortunately. Let's see. Still no good. So I wonder if maybe it has less to do with waiting here. Is it waiting here? Okay, let's wait a couple of different places. No. So how come it worked whenever I stepped through? It wasn't timing. Is this thing actually being called by accident? Dump. Hello there. Let me also make sure I built in case that's required. So no, it doesn't look like the actual handle places event is being called, which I guess is good. How come our stub is not being... What if I, instead of stubbing it out, I spy on it, which allows a pass-through. Do we see it? I don't see a hello there either. Which makes me wonder if during init... What's this? Briefly avoid loading services for observing. Add observers happens after a dispatch on init. That's where the timing is different. Okay. Stub. So we actually have to promise resolve set not set timeout. Well, all right. Set timeout resolve. Sure. 1 second. Still no. But it does say hello there. Oh, because the stub... Gotta stub first, gang. Must stub first. Okay, that worked. And now instead of using the set timeout, I'm going to execute soon. Okay, that works. And I'll comment. The places observer is added on the next tick. Is added. Places observer registration happens at the next tick of the event loop. Okay. Now, can we do, what was the, let's do bookmark removed as well, and then we'll call this the stream over. Bookmark removed. Places bookmark removed. No tests? Come on, you gotta have some tests here. No? Alright, fine. So what does it look like? Something like that. Okay. Well, let's copy that over. Item ID -1 URL. Sure. Let's copy this. Title. Test 1, 2, 3. Type. 1. Parent ID. -2. Index. 0. GUID. Test 1, 2, 3. Parent GUID. Fake. Source. 0 is tagging. False is descendant removal. False. All right, let's see if that works. Yay! Okay, so those both work. I'm gonna do the other two on my own time. So I've gotten these two. Thankfully, I think once these two its are done, I don't have to worry about these observers anymore. I can maybe even combine these two, the removals, in... I can maybe combine those in the next like in the same test here, because I can just like rerun these things and then assert that it was never called. And that's what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do it on my own. And that's it for the episode. Thank you so much for watching episode 352 of The Joy of Coding. Let me know what you thought. You know, I did a little bit of reviewing. I did a little bit of Fabricator stuff. We did a little bit of, writing some test and test conversion. Let me know what you thought. There's a link here in the agenda to rate this episode. You can write in. Let me know what you thought. It's just an easy peasy form. It's also a great way if you have questions you want me to try and answer on the stream. You can send me that. You can send me questions that way, and just I read everything that comes in. I'd love to hear from you. What are you enjoying? What are you not enjoying? What would you prefer I do? What would you prefer I didn't do? This is a great way of letting me know. And with that, I'll call it a day. Thanks again for watching episode 352, everybody. I hope your day goes really, really well, and you get everything you want. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.